Unit 6. How Money Made Us Modern. A. About 9,500 years ago, ancient accountants in Sumer 1 invented a way to keep track of farmers' crops and livestock. They began using small pieces of baked clay, almost like the tokens used in board games today. One piece might signify a measure of grain, while another, with a different shape, might represent a farm animal or a jar of olive oil. B. Those little ceramic shapes might not seem to have much in common with today's $100 bill, or with the credit cards and online transactions that are rapidly taking the place of cash, but the roots of our modern methods of payment lie in those Sumerian tokens. Such early accounting tools evolved into a system of finance and into money itself, a symbolic representation of value that can be transferred from one person to another as payment for goods or services. C. Since ancient times, humans have used items to represent value, from stones to animal skins to whale teeth. In the ancient world, people often relied upon symbols that had tangible value in their own right. The ancient Chinese made payments with cowrie shells, 3, which were prized for their beauty as materials for jewelry. As Glyn Davies notes in his book, A History of Money from Ancient Times to the Present Day, cowrie shells are durable, easily cleaned and counted, and defy imitation or counterfeiting. D. But eventually there arose a new, universal currency: gold. The gleaming metal could be combined with other metals at high temperatures to create alloys, 5, and was easy to melt and hammer into shapes. It became the raw material for the first coins, created in Lydia, present-day Turkey, around 2,700 years ago. Lydian coins didn't look much like today's coinage. They were irregular in shape and size and didn't have values inscribed on them. Instead, they used a stamped image to indicate their weight and value. E. The result, explains financial author Kabir Sehgal, was an economic system in which you knew the value of what you had and what you could buy with it. Unlike modern money, ancient coins were what economists call full-bodied or commodity money. Their value was fixed by the metal in them. F. Money's convenience made it easier for ancient merchants to develop large-scale trade networks in which spices and grain could be bought and sold across distances of thousands of kilometers. This led to the first foreign exchanges. In the ancient Greek city-state of Corinth, banks were set up where foreign traders could exchange their own coins for Corinthian ones. G. In the centuries that followed, trade routes forged more cultural connections between nations and regions. Besides exchanging money and goods, traders also spread religious beliefs, knowledge, and new inventions, creating connections among far-flung cultures. H. The dangers of moving money and goods over distances, whether from storms at sea or bandits and pirates, led humans to develop increasingly complex economic organizations. In the 1600s, investors gathering in London coffee houses began to underwrite traders and colonists heading to the New World, financing their voyages in exchange for a share of the crops or goods they brought back. Investors tried to reduce their risk by buying shares of multiple ventures. It was the start of a global economy in which vast quantities of products and money began to flow across borders in search of profit. I. By the 1700s, the global economy had grown so much that it was inconvenient to transport and store large quantities of coins. Several societies therefore shifted toward paper currency. The earliest paper bills were literally receipts that gave the bearer 7 ownership of gold or silver coins that could be collected upon demand. J. But as Lloyd Thomas explains in his book, Money, Banking and Financial Markets, bankers eventually realized that many people simply used their notes rather than redeeming them for gold. It meant that the bankers didn't actually need to have enough gold on hand to cover all the notes they issued. That revelation, Thomas says, eventually led to the concept of fiat money, which governments issue today. In contrast to commodity money, today's money has value essentially because a government says that it does. its purchasing power remains relatively stable because the government controls the supply. That's why a US $100 bill is worth $100 even though it only contains a few cents worth of raw materials. K. It's a system with an important advantage in that human judgment, rather than how much gold has been dug out of the ground, determines the amount of money in circulation. On the other hand, this can become a disadvantage. If a government decides to issue too much money, it can trigger an inflationary spiral that raises the price of goods and services. L. By the 20th century, new methods of payment had begun to emerge as alternatives to cash. In the 1920s, oil companies and hotel chains began to issue credit cards. These enabled customers to make purchases and pay what they owed later. In 1950, Diners Club International issued the first universal credit card, which could be used to purchase things at a variety of places. Using plastic to make purchases eventually proved more convenient than bills, coins, or even checks. M. In 2009, yet another high-tech successor to money emerged: Bitcoin. Bitcoins are a sort of unofficial virtual internet currency. They aren't issued or even controlled by governments, and they exist only in the cloud or on a person's computer. Parag Khanna, a financial policy expert, explains, "The real future is technology as money. That's what Bitcoin is about." N. From the clay tokens of Sumer to today's virtual currencies, the evolution of money has helped drive the development of civilization. Money makes it easier not only to buy and sell goods, but also to connect with the world, enabling traders to roam across continents and investors to amass wealth. It is a type of language that we all speak. From the humblest shop clerk to the wealthiest Wall Street financier, money exerts a powerful influence upon us all.